Hey, you know that crazy theory where all the Pixar movies are connected? Pretty cool, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not only the Pixar universe that's connected, but the Disney universe as well. Let's dive into it. This is The Film Nerd. Hey guys, it's the Film Nerd here with the first ever Disney theory on this channel. So without further ado, the theory. So to begin, let's discuss Hercules. That's kind of the film that ties this theory together. As we already know, the gods in that film are based on Greek mythology. Now, in Greek mythology, the father of Herc, Zeus, his parents are the Titans Kronos and Rhea. And in the film, we get confirmation that the Titans had at least two children, being Zeus and Hades. But as we know from mythology, they had more than that. There are a bunch, but the one we're going to focus on here is Poseidon, god of the sea. Poseidon had a lot of kids, but his most notable is Triton. So you might be ahead of me right now, but if you haven't seen The Little Mermaid in a little while, allow me to bring you up to speed. Ariel's father is named King Triton. That means that her grandfather is Poseidon, and her great-grandfather is Kronos, who is also the grandfather of Hercules. So if you connect the dots, we have Herc and Ariel as cousins. Now, we don't know for sure if this Triton is the exact same as the one we're talking about, but I mean, look at them. They look very similar. Okay, now let's talk about a couple completely separate theories, and we'll connect it all at the end. I want to talk about Anna and Elsa from Frozen and Rapunzel from Tangled possibly being cousins. So this theory has been circulating the internet for a little while, but the only evidence most people have is that the king of Arendelle from Frozen, Agnar, looks very similar to the queen of Corona from Rapunzel, Ariana. Now, that obviously isn't enough to go off of, so let's look at some more. So, recently, Frozen director Jennifer Lee confirmed a couple of things about the movie. First of all, that Agnar and Iduna survived after being lost at sea, but we'll get to that later. She also confirms that they were on the ship heading to a wedding. Also, we know that the shipwreck takes place 3 years before the majority of the movie. And what movie came out 3 years before Frozen? Tangled. And at the end of that movie, Rapunzel and Eugene are getting married, so it is likely that that's the wedding they were headed to, especially when you consider that Rapunzel and Eugene were in attendance at Elsa's coronation. So you might be wondering, if Rapunzel and Eugene were at Elsa's coronation, then why didn't Elsa and Anna go to Eugene and Rapunzel's wedding? Oh yeah, they don't leave because of ice powers! And geographically, this all adds up. Frozen takes place in the south of Norway, and Tangled takes place in the north of Germany, making it only a quick sail away. Anyway, getting off that little tangent, let's figure out how these two are related. So, the first thing we can look at is the royal families. Rapunzel's parents are King Frederick, and as I mentioned before, Queen Ariana. And Elsa and Anna's parents are Agnar and Iduna, blah blah blah, we already mentioned that. So based on the classic royal rules, Agnar and Ariana would both be from Arendelle, because that's where Agnar is king and will inherit the throne. That would mean that Ariana would be a foreign party in Corona. This also adds up because the royal rules are just plain weird. How it works is that if you are a bride to a king, you become a queen. But if you are a groom to a queen, you keep your same title. For example, if I married, let's say, Elsa, I would just be Mitch of House Bonson, not King Mitch, which does have a good ring to it, by the way. Which reminds me, Agnar, Ariana, and Arendelle all start with the letter A. Agnar and Ariana of Arendelle does have a nice ring to it. Speaking of names, if they are related, then Anna could have been named after her aunt, Ariana. Going back to Anna and Elsa though, if Agnar and Ariana are siblings, they would share an interesting parallel with the two sisters, and one represents cold and the other represents warm. Here's what I mean. Anna and Elsa both represent different weather, from their hair to their personalities. Anna is obviously warm and Elsa is, well, cold. Agnar and Ariana have something similar, where Agnar knows all about Elsa's ice powers and knows where to take her. They live in a culture where the main way to make a living is ice harvesting, and even the decor of the castle sort of represents ice and cold. Ariana, on the other hand, lives in Corona, where the literal symbol of the country is the sun. In Corona, you can see sun imagery literally everywhere. A clear parallel is there. That's probably enough to prove the cousin thing. Now, I personally believe the cousin thing, but even if you don't, we know that they are at least in the same universe because Rapunzel and Eugene were at Elsa's coronation. Next, let's throw a little Tarzan in here, shall we? So yes, I will be talking about the very popular theory that Tarzan is the brother of Anna and Elsa, even though Caden doesn't believe. Oh wait, you know what? That's a personal. So a few years ago on Reddit, Jennifer Lee confirmed that Chris Buck, director of Frozen and Tarzan, said that Agnar and Aduna did not die at sea. Rather, they shipwrecked on an island, had a baby boy, built a treehouse, and were eaten by a leopard. Wait, what does that sound like? Oh yeah! Tarzan! Also, check out this side by side. Sure, the hair color is off and the animation is different, but the hair length and facial structure are strikingly similar. Also, it makes sense that the hair is longer, because they've probably been lost at sea for a little less than 9 months, because when the ship leaves, Aduna doesn't look like she could be that far along in her pregnancy. Plus, Tarzan takes place on an island somewhere off the coast of Africa, probably around this area, so it makes sense that it would take him a while to get there because they live in the south of Norway. We need to answer the question though. Why is the ship on fire at the beginning of Tarzan? It's been said that there was a mutiny on board, which is not that far-fetched, considering that the crew would likely be quite grumpy after being lost at sea for 9 months. So we now know the theory is true because of the whole Chris Buck thing, so deal with it, haters, dab! I actually did dab when I was recording, I just thought you guys should know that. So now, how do we connect the Frozen, Tangled, and Tarzan theories to the Ariel and Hercules theory? Well, as I said before, the Kingdom of Arendelle is in southern Norway, and the Kingdom of Corona is in northern Germany. So, if you travel across the sea to Corona from Arendelle, you know what's right in the middle of those? Denmark. Oh, quick question though. Who wrote the original stories to The Little Mermaid? Oh, Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. Now, this doesn't outright prove that it's set in Denmark, but there are other clues. For example, Prince Eric's caretaker, Grimsby. Grimsby is a Danish name used as a nickname for the Nordic god Odin, so we're pretty sure it's in Denmark. That would mean the waters they sail in Frozen are the same waters where the Little Mermaid takes place. Hey, maybe that ship we see in the Little Mermaid that Ariel swims inside is an Arendelle ship. From the shape alone, it looks similar to the one from Frozen, so it's pretty likely. Next, let's talk Cinderella. She also connects to this one, believe it or not. In The Little Mermaid, when Ursula's human form is about to marry Eric, Scuttle and his pals storm the ship, and Eric's dog runs across the deck. Then, for a split second, we see these folks. And if they look familiar, that's because they are the king and the Grand Duke from Cinderella. Okay, so at this point, I realized that we're connecting Ariel to Hercules and then just putting them all in a long chain connecting back to Ariel. So what if I told you that Cinderella actually connects back to Hercules? At the beginning of Cinderella, the king is complaining about his son, and we see 3 books on his desk. One's by the French author Rabelais, another by the Greek philosopher Plato, and the last is by Greek poet Homer. Homer is famous for 2 large reads, the Iliad about the Trojan War and the Odyssey about the journey home from the Trojan War. And throughout both of these books, though he doesn't do much, Hercules is mentioned several times, meaning that both movies takes place in the same universe. Now let's quickly connect Aladdin to Beauty and the Beast. Yes, there's a new connection. At the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, Belle is describing her favorite book. In her description, she says, well, it's my favorite. Far off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise. Now, doesn't that sound a little familiar? Yeah, that could be Aladdin. For one, Agrabah would be an entire length of Europe away from France, where Belle is. So, far off places does work. As for sword fighting, we see some of that during One Jump Ahead. In terms of magic spells, well, you got the genie. And a prince in disguise could be how Aladdin was disguised as a prince to impress Jasmine. And though there are connections with this one, it shouldn't be taken too seriously. I mean, Belle's description could be like any fairy tale ever, so for the sake of things though, let's just go with it. And finally, to tie everything together, I'm just gonna connect Aladdin back to Hercules. Remember when Herc is singing Go the Distance and he climbs up a tree to see a shooting star? Well, I don't believe it's actually a shooting star, because nerds like me overanalyze everything. Notice how fast it's moving. Also, what kind of shooting star is purple? None. But you know what is purple? The magic carpet. You can probably see where I'm going with this, but I'll continue anyway. Remember in A Whole New World where Al takes Jazz around the world? Well, one of the places they go is the Pyramids of Giza, and then in a matter of minutes, they're in ancient Greece. In order for this to be possible, they'd have to be going at an incredibly fast speed. As fast as a shooting star, maybe? Yeah, that's my theory. Now, it makes sense. The carpet is actually the correct color, and the speed would work. Another thing that could prove they exist in the same world is that in an episode of Hercules the Animated Series, titled Hercules and the Arabian Night, Herc actually meets Aladdin. Now, the series isn't considered Disney canon, but it's clear that they have a likely connection. So guys, those are all the theories I have for today. If you have another connection, leave it in the comments down below, because if I get enough, I'll do a follow-up episode with your guys' responses. Remember to subscribe for new videos every Monday and Friday. Thanks for watching. The Film Nerd, out.